Hello everyone, this is Tyler here. I'm going to briefly explain something that many people don't realize about. About 3 years ago, I was actually looking at buying a Maserati Ghibli. This was the newest model at the time, and it was actually when I was living back in Chicago, or outside Chicago, I was very interested in this car. I had test driven it a couple times, and it was actually something that I could have afforded realistically at the time. It was a very cool experience, honestly, driving one of these supercars. Anyone who doesn't know, Maserati is actually owned by a Lamborghini. So when you drive a Maserati, or Ferrari it might be, when you're driving a Maserati, essentially you're driving a car that has the same engine as a Ferrari. A car with this type of power and just amazing feel on the road. When anyone who's never driven a supercar, the brakes are just super abrupt, and it's just a cool experience. It's so different than driving a normal vehicle, and I just loved it. At the time, I had a Nissan Murano SUV, and I didn't have any car payment. I had insurance and gas and some other miscellaneous expenses, and I was very much interested in the sports car experience. At this time, I was about 24. I love cars. I loved them then, and I still do. I think they're great. They're very awesome. And I looked at my options here, and I've always been a big aficionado of Italian sports cars. I've always thought they were pretty awesome. So I was really set on like a Maserati, and my kind of mindset is I'm like, go big or go home. If I'm getting a sports car, I want a supercar like Maserati, Ferrari, Lambo, in that class we're talking. So ultimately what's the deciding factor for me is that I was going to put down a hefty down payment, and then I would have had the car payments each month. If you have a supercar, you can be sure that your car payment is going, for this model, I would have been paying around $1,100 a month, maybe $1,000 more or less. So I had that, plus my insurance would have gone up, and then the parts are a big factor people often don't remember with supercars. Any little thing on a supercar is much more than any fixes on a normal car, and I was very surprised at oil changes or transmission problems, any brake problems, any of these issues. And don't think that you can do most of this at home, because you can't. The parts, typically they're licensed. These supercars are very complicated how they're constructed, and it's very hard to break apart one and work on. It's not as simple as like a normal sedan. I knew the parts, and in this aspect would be more expensive. Now the other thing is that the depreciation of supercar is quite great, and it was about these cars actually depreciate about 40 to 50% after just 3 years new. So it would be a huge decrease in the overall value of the car, and that for me was just it was pretty big, honestly. And I felt that if I was paying that much per month, I'd rather just outright buy the car without having the car payments. And I also had the parts to worry about, and this kind of factored in. And also remember gas. Gas MPG on these cars, you're only getting like 14 miles per gallon. These supercars, these have 500 plus supercharged engines, and it's insane, honestly, like how quickly you run through gas. And then, of course, you also are a target for police. You're much more liable or likely to get pulled over or something. So all of these are factors that have to be considered. And for me, it was just it wasn't, I wasn't quite ready at the end of the day. This was in 2018. I was looking at this, and I had decided I would be better off waiting when I just had more cash on hand to make this purchase. At the end of the day, a car should be enjoyed a supercar especially. So in the near future, I would love to buy a supercar, and it's definitely something I will buy. But it's important to remember that you have a lot of other expenses associated with cars, and sports cars especially, and be prepared for that. I love sports cars in general, so give me your feedback here, and I'd be curious to know if any of you guys have interest in buying a sports car someday. Thank you.